All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another English class. So we're going to continue our informative discourse unit, and today we will be covering extracting implied information. And as is our custom, today's word of the day is scour. So to scour means to search something carefully and thoroughly. It is usually associated with moving quickly. Example sentence, we retraced our steps and scoured the hiking trail for the wedding ring. Right. So a little did you know? So scour has two distinct meanings in English. One has meanings related to cleaning and washing away, and that scour, which dates back to at least the early 14th century, probably comes from the late Latin exquare. Can't pronounce it, but you guys can look it up, meaning to clean off. A related non-scour refers to the action of this type of scouring, or to places that have been scoured, as by running water. The other verb scour appeared a century earlier and may come from the Old Norse skur, S-K-U-R, meaning shower. And this word is also distantly related to the Old English skur again, but this time with a C. And that is the ancestor of our English word shower. Many different things can be scoured, such as an area, as in scoured the woods in search of the lost dog, or publications, as in scouring the magazine and newspaper articles. Right. So let us start. So implied information is not explicitly stated, and it's not clearly stated here, right? To understand this type of information, readers must make inferences, draw on the context of a sentence or a larger piece, understand the view of the writer or a character, and even make predictions of what can happen or what had happened in a piece. Analytical and interpretation skills are mostly used in this type of comprehension. Right. So here are some strategies for extracting implied information. We have previewing, predicting, reading and recording, and finally analyzing and interpreting. Pardon me. So let's start with previewing. We preview a text or image by taking note of its author, publication, information, title, headings/captions, visuals, and key sentences or paragraphs. We can inquire about what we read or see by asking specific questions. Who wrote the piece? What are their interests and values? So this is pertaining to the author, And you might ask this question in almost any area of text that you read, especially if the author is mentioned and information on the author is needed. In your English B class, you would be required to read poems, short stories, a novel, drama, those four, if I'm remembering correctly. And you would notice that you will probably get some background information on the author of the piece. And you'll be wondering, but why do you need this specific information? Different authors have different values, they have different interests, they would have certain experiences that led them to write a specific piece, and not only in literature, but also in articles, magazines, essays. The author matters, right? And by understanding the author better, you can see why a novel, a poem, a story, a short story, that is, a drama, an essay, etc., is written and why it is written. and you can understand their stance on the topic that they are presenting. Right. So then we can ask questions about purpose. What is the purpose of the piece? Is it informing, interpreting, arguing, or persuading, or accomplishing something else? So every piece has a purpose, right? And in understanding this purpose, we know, again, why the author chose to write this specific text. Why did they present their stance in this certain way? Is it satire? Is it parody? Is it more serious? We can ask all of these questions when we understand the purpose of the piece. Oh, I see somebody join. Welcome to class. Right.
Hi.
So we're going to continue under previewing. And I think you joined a little late. So the topic for today would be extracting implied information. And we're just going through some strategies that we can use to understand this implied information in text. Right.
Okay, sounds good.
Right. So here we're continuing the questions that we can ask when we approach a piece. So content. Does the first paragraph include the main point or main idea? Does the conclusion say what the author has focused on? You might come across some people who they say they read the last page of a book first, or they read the last paragraph of the book first. Sometimes it can give you a general feel of the entire novel, right? And sometimes in a well-structured essay, the last paragraph will have a summary or recap of what the entire piece entails. So with that, you have a basic idea of what to expect. And you can also find that in the first paragraph as well, if it is well written. So next we have context. When was the piece published? Is it current? Does the date matter? Is there any background information you can use to understand the vocabulary, thoughts, perspectives, or setting of the piece? So again, you as a C6 student, you might come across questions on context, especially in English literature. Right. So in English literature, again, you cover drama, short story, novel, poem. All of these things, you might need to have some background information on these pieces to understand what's happening. So you'll find that the piece happens maybe in the 20th century. We're not in the 20th century now. And as people in the present age, we might not understand the context of that time. So with background information, you can get more understanding as to why characters act a certain way, as to why the setting is different, as to why the thoughts of the characters are different from what we have now, right? And then lastly, we can ask questions on the audience. Who is the author trying to inform or persuade? Is the author addressing someone like me? Right. So by understanding the audience, you understand what the author assumes about who they're writing for. So do they assume that the audience understands certain vocabulary? Do they assume that the author understands a particular setting? Do they think they understand certain issues that are highlighted in a piece? All of these questions can be asked and also answered. And so we move on to questions for previewing visuals. And in paper 1, if I'm remembering correctly, you will have some visuals that you have to answer. some questions too, right? So it won't necessarily be a picture like this, but it might be a pie chart, an advertisement, a cartoon, a table, etc., etc. Right. So in previewing visuals, especially in the case of a writing prompt or as a reference for other questions, we can ask questions about the image's purpose, pitch, context, meaning, captions, and subtext. Right. So again, we covered purpose before. So it's basically the same because every published image has a motive. And without purpose, images would be meaningless, to us. If an image is commercial, behind it is a pitch. Catchy themes, attractive figures, and grandiose promises are all used by advertisers to sell an image. Reality has to be weighed with these types of images for sound decisions to be made. So again, advertisements, they are the things that mostly 100% of the time have a pitch behind whatever they are presenting. And of course, they want you to buy their product. They want you to be interested in the product. They want you to, at least consider paying attention to what they have to promote, And so not every advertisement is promising. It might seem promising, but it might not be that way in reality. Next, we move on to context. So a photograph from a newspaper has a completely different context from an image taken from a fashion magazine. Knowing the context of an image enriches the image with meaning. And then we move on to meaning. Most images are intended to communicate some idea or thought. These meanings can also become personal. So we can add our own meanings to certain images, as in this image here. Here we see a prompt. Write a story based on the picture below. You, as the writer or student, you have to be the one to give the image meaning. Because right now, just seeing this picture, it doesn't have much meaning to us now. It's just a picture of a man with a guitar. But you adding your own context and purpose to the image gives it more meaning, right? Then we move on to captions. So is the image accompanied by words or audio? In this case, no. It just has the source, which doesn't do us much good in this situation. And sometimes images are accompanied by text in the image itself. So you have to look out for that as well. And then lastly, subtext. So some images have a subtext, meaning that a message is implied but not openly stated. So, for example, some political cartoons, yes, they can be satirical at times, but they also have a subtext to it that only someone who is really aware of a situation in a country can get what the image is trying to say. And here we have an example, because generally art is one thing where we as people, we put our own, meaning, sometimes even our own context and whatever else to it. But without getting the background information on these certain images, they mean nothing to us. So here we have an image. It is The Irritating Gentleman, by Bertold Waltz. Hope I pronounced that right. And this was made in 1874. So of course we can see what's happening in the image. We see a young girl, we see an older man seemingly trying to pursue this young girl. And we see that she is in a very defensive and mournful state, as seen in her black clothes. Now, without a proper, again, context and purpose of this piece, we might not get the full entire meaning by just looking at it. Sure, it leaves an impression because we can tell just by viewing it certain elements, that are being presented. We see a girl, we see an older man, we see another man behind her. It seems like they're in a train car. She has a purse in her hand. She looks like she's wearing morning clothes. We can see these in the image. But again, without any real background information, we can't get the full meaning behind this painting. And then with that, we can go to predicting. But before that, I just want to check up on you. Are you following so far? Do you have any questions?
Yes, yeah. Everything looks good. I was wondering if you could repeat the things you said about subtext.
Oh, so again, the subtext of an image is basically a hidden meaning. So I was using an example of a political cartoon. You might see them even in online articles, sometimes in the newspaper. And in these images, they seem funny at first glance because the artists, they make it almost like a parody. But in these images, unless you keep up with the news or you know what the artist is trying to infer from the image, you might not get the implied meaning. So that meaning would be the subtext.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we move on to predicting. When you make predictions about the text you are about to read, you set up expectations based on your prior knowledge about similar topics. As you read, you may mentally revise your prediction as you gain more information. Being acquainted with specific topics, issues, concepts, themes, and tropes all help you predict what a writer or speaker will cover in subsequent paragraphs, the duration of a speech, or the presentation of an image. Right. So predictions, we use them everywhere in life, not only in just reading. In watching a film, the setting helps us make predictions about what will happen. And not only setting, but the atmosphere, the music, the character's actions. Yeah, characters' actions and thoughts. All of these help us make predictions of what might come next, right? And so also in reading an essay or a more formal type of text, you might predict what the author is going to say. I mean, author or writer, is going to say just by getting a broad understanding of the initial topic. So let's say somebody says cats are better than dogs, or dogs are better than cats, and that is their essay. You can probably think of some reasons why somebody can say which is better, just by having general knowledge of cats and dogs, right? Just like that. You were saying something?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay. And so with making predictions, we can do a prediction map. So first, you make the prediction. Then you ask, is your prediction true? If yes, the writer confirms what you already know, or the writer follows a path you expected them to follow. If not, the writer touches the topic in an unexpected way, or the writer presents information that goes against what you originally expected. Let's say, for example, again, you're watching a film. The place is dark. The character is running through the woods. They're being pursued. You think there are only two ways this can go. Either the character is gonna get caught, they're gonna hide and make it through, they're gonna I don't know, be rescued by somebody else. We make all these kinds of predictions while watching, a cartoon, film, anything else. The same thing it is in writing. So, right. So what predictions can you make from the following audio? So I'm gonna play the audios and you're gonna tell me what you think either the setting is, the character is, anything you get from the audio, right?
Okay.
So I'm just gonna play the first one. Let's see. Let me know if you're hearing it.
Is it playing?
Yes, play now. All right, so did you hear it?
Yeah, I heard it. It sounds like the place is crowded and there's a lot of things going on. So I'd say it's either like maybe a subway station or maybe a marketplace. Yeah, and sounds like there's some people talking and there's also some stuff going on.
Right. So what you said is true. It could also be maybe even a restaurant, maybe not like a formal one, because you know that formal ones are more quiet, they have a calmer atmosphere, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So let's go to the second one. I hope it plays.
Hello.
All right, they're overlapping each other, I think.
Hello.
All right. It seems like the audio is not gonna work for today, but
okay.
You heard the lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was supposed to be the second audio, but the restaurant one can play. So you tell me your prediction on that one.
The one where the lady said hello.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really okay. So it sounded like kind of crowded as well. It also sounded like old friends that I don't know, maybe friends that are seeing each other. So then she said hello. That's what I'm getting from it. That's what I'm getting from it.
Right. I agree. And in terms of character, I'm guessing, in my opinion, like she might be maybe middle-aged, nearing older, right?
Yeah.
And maybe kind of eccentric almost, or
I also feel like she sounded kind of Asian. I don't know.
I see. Right. And like those fun-loving older women, she sounds like that to me, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's see if I can move on without this making too much noise. Right. So what deductions can you make about the characters in the following sentences? So here we have 3 sentences, and each of them describe a particular character, right? And so again, we can make deductions, right? About, before we use audio, now we're using written text. So the first sentence is by China Miéville in This Census Taker. And it says, his hand was over his eyes. He looked like a failed soldier. Dirt seemed so worked into him that the lines of his face were like writing. Right. So I'll take this one first, and then you can do the other two. Right.
Okay.
So from this, I'm thinking that this character might be depressed. You look like a failed soldier. That cannot be a happy feeling. It has to be very despondent and very weary. And the dirt seems so worked into him, that line. It seemed like he has had so many hard experiences in his life, maybe. And the dirt, maybe he's I don't know, a farmer, a mechanic, I don't know, some kind of occupation that deals with dirt, or he's in a different situation that makes the dirt so kicked into his face that it looks like literal writing, as the author said it, right? So that is my deduction. Don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's my deduction.
Yeah, I was thinking like a farmer that lost his crops or something, and he was kind of sad. So
right. And so the second sentence, right? He was a compact, clear-cut man with precise features, a lot of very soft black hair, and thoughtful dark brown eyes. He had a look of weariness, which could change when he felt relaxed or happy, which was not often in these difficult days, into a smile of amused friendliness and pleasure, which aroused feelings of warmth and something more in many women. And this is by A.S. Biat in Possession. So you can go ahead and give your deduction.
okay. Let me get some time to think about it. Let me think about
All right, no problem.
compact, click on her feature. Okay. Well, I feel like this is a well-kept man, that I'm picturing kind of a black successful man, and and basically describing his personality and how he normally went about his days, and something more men. And the part about women, I think it's just describing him and his personality of a nice, successful black man. That's what I get from it.
Right. And we can see that maybe in a way he has to keep up appearances, because it says he had a look of weariness, but it could change if he felt relaxed or happy, or he could have a smile of amused friendliness and pleasure, right? So he might have to keep face in certain instances. As you said, he could be a successful person. And, obviously with successful people, they have to maintain an image of compactness, let's say that, right? And then lastly, we have by Charles Dickens in Great Expectations, Miss Havisham had shut out infinitely more, that in seclusion she had secluded herself from 1,000 natural and healing influences, that her mind, brooding solitary, had grown diseased, as all minds do, and must, and will, that reverse the appointed order of their maker. Very interesting.
Yes. Okay. For this one, I'm picturing a old lady who is slowly, how do you say, losing her mind as she gets older, and she's starting to become more separated from her normal ways, and is basically losing her mind. That's what I'm seeing from it.
Right. And we would be acquainted with old, almost senile old women in literature, film, etc. And they oftentimes, as you said before, shut themselves away from people. And then when people try to encroach on their space, either accidentally or intentionally, all hell breaks loose, right?
Yep. Okay.
So let us go to an example in film, how we can make predictions from film, right? Let's hope this.
This video is brought to you by Mubi. Get 30 days of Mubi for free when you go to mubi.com/ThomasFlight. One of my favorite techniques in Nope is about to happen right here. Did you catch that? Listen again. Was that the wind? Or maybe something else?
All right, so that's all I'm gonna play for this evening.
Okay.
Right. So even in this, I guess I can say video essay on film, the person is even using the same techniques that certain filmmakers use, which is the suspense or the doubt that we the viewers and even readers get from certain cues in film or video, right? So
Yeah.
he's highlighting the use of sound in Nope, this particular film. And he's saying how subtle it is that the filmmaker and, the music specialist, they would make it almost subtle in the way that they employ the sound to make you know that, yes, it's just a scene of a man with his horse looking out into the horizon. There's nothing harmful about that, but the lighting, the sound, the suspense, it makes you predict that something bad is going to happen or something horrifying is going to happen. So again, we use predictions in all walks of life. And then we can move on to reading and recording. So first, we read for literal meaning first. And we did talk about explicit information in a previous class. So you read for literal meaning first, because it's the easiest to understand. Next, we take note of the main idea and the supporting ideas. And then lastly, you note your impressions as you read. And these specific strategies, they're most likely used when you're reading a larger piece. Well, not only larger piece, but literature in general. So people might use annotation. They might summarize what they're reading. They might put some inline text to note their impressions on what they're reading, whether it's in poetry, prose, drama, right? So when approaching a piece, take note of its...
Can you go back to that last slide? I actually wanted to read something there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks. I got it.
No problem. So when approaching a piece, take note of its purpose. What a writer or reader should get from a well-conceived purpose is a guide for choosing words, sentences, and details. Purpose means the writer's intent and hopes for their piece. So in an essay or article or any other informative genre, the purpose is more plainly outlined. If it's a drama or prose or poem, you probably have to find that purpose, because obviously the author is not going to say, this book is the XYZ 1, 2, 3. They're just going to go straight into the narrative or poem or whatever, right? And then we have the audience. Writers often tailor their work. This means that they present it in a style and form appropriate to its readers. As readers, most of us can easily peg the audience for which a particular work was written. All right, so my time is running out. Let me check the time. Right. So I'm gonna end the meeting and then we can rejoin.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we are back. All right. So as I said before, we can oftentimes know which audience the writer is writing for. Let's say, for example, you might see an article and the article brings up terms like glucose 6-phosphate or ATP, GTP, all of these things. You know that this article is for someone who is involved in science, specifically biology, biochemistry, chemistry, all of those things that relate to, the study of the human body, the sciences. The article is made for those who understand all these terms. If you don't understand these terms, then the audience is not you. I mean, obviously you can look up the terms if you can, but those who get what the article is saying by the get-go, that is who the writer intended the writing for, right? Same thing with a fashion magazine. In the fashion magazine, they bring up names like Dior, Mugler, Louis Vuitton, etc., etc. Blue Marine. You know that people who are interested in fashion, that's what the piece is about. Not only because it's in the fashion magazine, but because of the names that are being brought up, right? So we generally can understand who the audience is and what the writer and who the writer is targeting. So lastly, we have strategy. Strategy is the specific rhetorical pattern you use to organize the idea into an essay. And these rhetorical patterns include narration, description, examples, definitions, comparison contrast, process/sequence, classification, casual analysis, also known as cause and effect, and lastly, argumentation. And you're gonna have to know how to write in these different styles because that is what you'll be tested on. And not only from here, but going onwards from high school to university or from high school to the working field. You will have to appeal to different audiences, have different purposes, and use different strategies to get your point across. And so we'll go a little bit into main and supporting ideas. So what is the main idea? The main idea is the central point or thought the author wants to communicate to the readers. The main idea answers the question, what does the author want me to know about the topic? Or what is the author teaching me? Often the author states the main idea in a single sentence. If it's more technical, then it'll probably be in more than one sentence. So a strong paragraph explores or elaborates on its main idea or main example. The main idea is sometimes located in the paragraph's topic sentence, which is a launching point for a series of details, or it can be implied by other information in the text. The main idea of an essay, for example, is often found in the last sentence of the first paragraph. In a narrative or poetic piece, the main idea can be inferred by understanding the paragraphs or stanzas presented. The supporting ideas and supporting sentences strengthen the main idea by giving extra details, examples, descriptions, suggestions, or arguments. So let's bring back up the argument dogs are better than cats. Somebody might say, well, that is the main idea, right? Dogs are better than cats. Supporting ideas, dogs are more fun. What else can they say? Dogs are more loyal. Yeah, those are some of the supporting ideas.
More active.
Yeah, more active as well. So all of these are the supporting ideas of the main ideas. I mean, the main idea, singular, that dogs are better than cats, right? So that's basically the setup. And with that, we can move on to analyzing and interpreting. So once you understand the literal meaning of a text, you can move on to analyzing, which is breaking it down into parts and telling how those parts relate to each other, and interpreting it, which means coming to a fuller understanding of its meaning. We use these skills by annotating or summarizing text, taking note of the figurative language used, identifying and understanding the connotations and denotations in text, making inferences and conclusions about what is read, seen, or heard. And last slide for today, questions used for analysis and interpretation. And of course, these are just some of the questions. So, what is the writer's stance or attitude towards the subject? Again, let's continue using the dogs versus cats analogy. So the writer's stance is that dogs are better than cats. That's just it. That's their attitude. And depending on how strong the writer brings their argument against cats, you might say, well, the author might hate cats for real, or probably they had a bad experience with cats, or maybe they never had a cat in their life. You can use these deductions, right? What is the writer's tone? Again, with the same analogy, the writer can, well, it's not really objective anymore. Well, it can still be objective. So they can approach the argument objectively. So they come and just lay out the points to you and say this, that, and that's it. Or they could be more subjective. You can tell that, man, this writer really loves dogs from how they write. Are they very enthusiastic about dogs? Do they seem like they have no real venom against cats? All of these can be inferred, or they really hate cats. Again, what assumptions do the writer seem to be making about the audience? The writer assumes that the audience agrees with them that dogs are better than cats. And what's the writer's primary purpose? We already said that. How does the writer develop ideas? There are different ways to do that. How does the text appeal to the emotions? So the writer might use the audience's will. They assume that the audience has experience with dogs, and they can appeal to their senses by, recalling the activities that they had with their dog, and they assume that the audience also had these experiences, and the audience will say, yes, I understand, and dogs are better, whatever. Is the text fair? Depending on how strong they come, it might be yes or no. Is the evidence strong? Well, they'd have to write the essay first. Is the text effective? Maybe on somebody who loves cats more than dogs, or they love cats and dogs equally, like myself, it wouldn't really be effective on me. But depending on how strong they bring about their point and how they use their quote-unquote evidence and ideas, it can still seem like a well-written essay to me, who loves both animals equally, right? So all of these questions can be used for analysis and interpretation. And with that, we end for today. So thank you
Okay.
for listening.
Mm-hmm.
And let me stop the recording.